Hello and welcome to the Beat Cancer Answer, brought to you by BeatCancer.Org, the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education. We believe that 90% of all cancers could be eliminated through environmental and lifestyle choices alone, and science agrees. Unfortunately, most people don't know it, so we provide the education that can help you prevent, cope with, and beat cancer through diet, lifestyle, and other immune-boosting approaches. On every podcast, we will feature an expert who can teach us how to become part of that 90% who could prevent getting diagnosed with cancer. If you already have cancer, we have empowering information for you too. Over the past 35 years, we have helped thousands of cancer patients get back into the driver's seat when it comes to their personal journey of healing cancer and preventing future reoccurrence. Listen now as BeatCancer.Org founder Dr. Susan Silberstein interviews 17-year brain cancer survivor Richard Weap on his journey and his recovery.
Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Richard Wiebe from Augusta, Georgia. Richard is a 17-year survivor of a stage 4 brain tumor known as glioblastoma multiforme, diagnosed when he was 30 years old. As a result of his own recovery experience, Richard has become a nutrition lecturer and cancer counselor. He is committed to helping others regain their health through proper diet and lifestyle, and is especially dedicated to assisting cancer patients. Richard has been married to an amazing woman for 24 years, and they have 3 college-age children. Richard, welcome.
Well, thank you, Susan. Appreciate it.
Richard, you have an amazing story of long-term recovery from a particularly deadly cancer. What are the actual survival statistics for glioblastoma?
Depending on whose statistics you want to use, either the government's or some of the private industry groups, the percentage ranges from 1 to 5.5%, meaning the number of people who actually reach the 5-year mark after diagnosis.
Wow.
And that doesn't say anything about quality of life. Obviously, when you start working on people's brains and doing surgery and removing tissue, chances are pretty good that they're going to wake up with some deficiencies, and that's sometimes as bad as paralysis. A lot of times it's memory problems or speech problems. It can even be just a difficulty in being able to think clearly or concentrate, and that will last for the rest of their lives.
Wow. And you are, of course, a rare exception to those statistics, so we want to hear your story.
Okay. Well, mine, and you kind of mentioned when it started, but mine really started in 1996, kind of the second half of 96. I'd been having sporadic headaches, and I assumed they were migraines or that they were simply just a sign of being in my 30s. I had a buddy who was in his 30s. He had migraines. I had 3 kids, 3 and under. I was taking night classes. I had the typical stress at work, stress at home, and I just thought, welcome to your 30s. Go get a migraine pill, I guess. And I really managed it with lots of 500 milligram Tylenol. Found out that would work pretty well. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a coworker, and I was telling him about this oddball sound that I would get in my ears during the headaches, that I got concerned, because when I told him the story, he's telling me about a friend of his who had something similar, and it turned out to be high blood pressure. So I made a trip to the office of my primary care physician and met with a young, fairly inexperienced doctor, and literally within the first 5 minutes, I could tell that he was no longer interested. When I mentioned the sound in my ears, I think he decided I was a little bit off my rocker. So he sent me for the sugar test that you get when you're pregnant, where you drink the cola syrup, take your blood every hour. Found out I did not have a sugar problem, and I wasn't pregnant. So I went back and thought I would ask for a different doctor the second time. And sure enough, another young, inexperienced doctor appeared. But to his credit, he tried a lot harder. He listened well. He gave me 20 minutes instead of 5. And then he wrote me a prescription for allergies similar to Claritin. And I had been in the same city for almost 20 years and knew I did not have allergies, so I didn't bother to fill the prescription. I just went back to my Tylenols. and stopped going to doctors. I managed to ruin, Mother's Day, wife's birthday, 4th of July in San Diego with friends, things that you remember because there was something important attached. And finally, by October, I managed to get one of these that was what I call beyond migraine. And in addition, it lasted more than 24 hours, which was new. That had never happened before. So it started on a Sunday. On Monday morning, I went back and saw doctor number 3 at the same office. And this gentleman wrote me a prescription and said, this is the end-all pill for migraines. If you take one, it should do the trick. If you have to, take 2, but don't drive. I took 2. I did drive, and nothing changed. My headache didn't get any better. My driving didn't get any worse. So Tuesday morning, day 3 of the same headache, I went and saw the 4th doctor at the office. My wife went with me on that trip, and very persistently but nicely asked the doctor to write some type of test for my head, and just said that she felt like it had gone on too long. He agreed, so he wrote a referral for an MRI, and of course you have to wait for your insurance company to approve those. So by Friday, which is 3 days later, day number 6 with the same headache, the approval from the insurance company had not come in. The lady who handles those at the insurance office, her voicemail was full, and if that wasn't enough, I developed double vision at the end of the workday on that Friday. And I literally drove home with one eye closed, because when the exact same car is coming at you in pairs, you kind of want to know which is the real one and which one to avoid. So we laugh now, but at the time it was interesting. So this went on and off sporadically Friday night, Saturday, and by Sunday morning, my wife wakes up at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm not in bed. I'm laying on the floor, and she, of course, is hoping I'm not laying there passed out, but she comes walking over and stares down at me. What I had done, what I found out, if you take a towel and roll it up, put it under the arteries that go up the back of your neck and press down against the floor, it slows that blood flow enough that your head doesn't thump as bad and hurt as bad while you're waiting for your Tylenols to kick in. So she looked at me and said, going to church. No. Good. Get up. You're going to the emergency room. So there we go. Found out that between 7 and 7:30 on a Sunday morning, the emergency room is a completely deserted place. They'll be happy to get you right in. But kind of par for the whole story, I had a couple more insults to add to my injuries. It started with a lady who was doing my vitals, your blood pressure, etc., when you check in, and she started lecturing me about a newspaper article that was literally on the front page that morning, and it was about how taking too much Tylenol would damage the human liver. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, it came out this morning. I've been at this for months. How was I supposed to know about this? But I was just nice, and we kept going. The second insult came from the physician who was on duty in the ER. He was this giant of a man, very somber-faced, very monotone. His face never changed expression, even when he was talking. And he comes in, and I'm on the gurney, and he's looking down at me, and he says, I understand you have double vision. Yes. How many of me do you see? I'm looking for the trick question, because he just told me he knows I have double vision, but I said, 2. He puts his hand in front of one of my eyes and says, now how many of me do you see? 1. And he says, congratulations. Most people flunk that test, but it is impossible to see 2 of anything with one eye covered. Mm-hmm. Great. I'm glad I passed the test. What does that mean? So he says, how about if we take a picture of your head? And so 10 minutes later, I'm downstairs, lying in an MRI tube for the next 45 minutes while my brain is being scanned. Afterward, we went back upstairs to the emergency room, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. Finally, he reappeared, I'm on the gurney again. He's towering over me, and he says, "You have a huge brain tumor." And because his face didn't change expression, I wasn't sure he was serious. I was hoping he was going to crack a big smile and go, "No, I'm just kidding."
Oh.
So I asked him, I said, "I can't tell if you're serious." He says, "Come with me." And we walked to the other side of the ER where they had the light-up board for x-rays. He starts putting the MRI slides up on the light-up board. And my wife and I are not experienced at looking at x-rays and MRIs, but we didn't need to be. There was a side view picture of my head with a big circle occupying about 25% of my head, and that circle was a tumor.
Wow. Wow. We need lots of time to talk, so I want to cut a little bit more to the chase here. You were diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. Were chemo and radiation recommended?
Of course.
Of course.
So that's what happened next. Is I asked him, "What do we do?" He said, "You go to the biggest hospital in town, you meet with a neurosurgeon, and you have surgery." But here's what's the interesting part. He said the fact that you can walk and talk and that thing is so big means it's not a cancer.
Oh.
So he didn't think it was cancer. Another doctor going through the ER had done hand surgery on me a few years before. He stopped and looked at it and said the same thing. He said, "I am a bone guy, but from what I remember in med school, that's not a cancer." I don't know why people are using that word. I never experienced cancer, didn't know anyone who had cancer, so I didn't even understand where that was coming from. But we went to the big hospital and met 2 neurosurgeons who said the same thing. So 4 doctors in one day told me it wasn't cancer, so we weren't even going to be talking about chemo and radiation until after the surgery. The gentleman who did the surgery came into my room in ICU and said I was able to get out more than 90% of the tumor, but that when he got inside and saw the color, he knew exactly what it was. It was a stage 4 cancer called the glioblastoma, as you mentioned. He says survival is normally about 12 months with treatment in this country. Because yours was so big, it's going to come back faster. You're going to be gone in 6 months. You're going to spend the last 2 of those 6 months in a hospice wearing a diaper.
Oh, God.
Yeah, very nice guy. I'm sorry for you and your family or your kids. I took pictures of my 3 little children in the surgery, put them on that big light that they use, so that would be the last thing I saw when I went to sleep. So he knew about our children, didn't even mention that, walks out of the room. That's it. Comes back 10 minutes later. My wife and I are crying our eyes out. And he says, "I just want to make sure that you understood what I said. There's no cure for what you have. Don't run around the country chasing things that don't exist. You're only going to feel good for a couple of months." And after that, it turns into a faith discussion, and I have 3 pages in a journal of things that happened in 2 weeks. But the next big thing was 2 hours out of the hospital. I'm at home in bed. My wife goes to get a prescription filled for me, meets a lady who had beaten metastatic breast cancer 20 years prior, and tells my wife, "Your husband is not going to die."
Wow.
So tells her to sit down, tells her her story, and here's what it was. She had been on the pre-med track, came down with this metastatic breast cancer, had gone through several of her organs. The doctors said, "We cannot radiate your entire body. We can't give you enough chemo to matter. Go home and put your affairs in order." With her 6-month diagnosis, she went to the next state over. We lived in Nevada. She went to Utah, started work with a very famous natural physician. His name is Dr. Christopher, actually not even a physician, but herbalist, and was working at a college there. And he said, "I will fix you." And 6 months later, instead of dead, her cancer was completely gone. She was back in Las Vegas. She was time to make a decision, and she said, "I don't think I want to get back on the pre-med track anymore."
Right.
Because those patients get so sick, they lose hair, they lose weight, they lose their dignity, most of them die, it's miserable. He treats them, none of that happens, and more of them seem to be surviving. I'd rather do what he does. So the day that my wife's talking to her, which of course meant an hour later I'd be talking to her, had graduated from his school, had gone back, graduated from the school he was at, and had spent 20 years helping people beat everything you can think of, including cancer.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, that's some kind of divine providence there.
Absolutely. So let me give you the explanation point, and I'll stop the story. My doctor told she had me juicing and making all kinds of diet changes, things that would fight the cancer instead of help the cancer to grow. And my doctor was telling me every single month to stop juicing because he had heard about people in Nordic countries getting too much vitamin A from fish oil. And the vitamin A that you get from juicing, the body just makes what it needs. You're never going to have a problem with it. But I politely listened to him every month and didn't argue with him. But when I made it to 12 months, this is the guy telling me I'd be gone in 6, and I kept not dying on schedule. I made it to 12 months, and I waited till he finished and very kindly asked him, how many of your glioblastoma patients make 12 months? Mm-hmm. And he gave me that deer-in-the-headlights surprise look and said, keep doing what you're doing.
God bless him.
So that's the short or long story.
Well, it really is fascinating. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I did
No, it's fine.
And I knew you had done a lot of natural things, but you did take chemo and radiation, right?
I did because that's what the doctors were telling me to do.
Right.
We're meeting this natural gal who's telling me not to, and all I know is that the doctors had all these fancy diplomas, and I didn't see any on the walls where she was working. So I thought if I have to, I'll just add it to the others, and now I'm throwing in, I'll throw in the kitchen sink if I have to. But yeah, I went ahead and just figured if I could do it all, I would have a better chance of winning all the way around. Yeah. The downside of the chemo was I went from 183 to 136. I lost almost 50 pounds.
Wow.
I literally went to my workplace just to stop by for a visit and had people who didn't recognize even my face. I walked up to people that I had worked with for years who didn't know me. I had permanent hearing loss, which I was prepared for. They had warned me about that. And then the third month of chemo, I came down with some kind of virus just in time for the full effects of the chemo to set in, which is chills, extreme fatigue, sometimes vomiting. So that one made the other worse, and that was a particularly unpleasant month. The radiation treatments created the usual hair loss, dry skin, sunburn on steroids. I didn't learn until later about radiation passing all the way through the skull, not just stopping at the tumor, which means you're damaging cells that are good, healthy cells that are in front of the tumor and in back of the tumor. And in my case, they were shooting a beam from temple to temple, moving the machine, and then shooting from the forehead out through the back of the head. Oh. So now, of course, I'm concerned about developing early Alzheimer's or memory problems later or thinking problems later. So the second time I had cancer, I did not do chemo radiation.
All right. Tell us about that second cancer now.
Okay. Well, and it's from the first one, but 3 years ago I had a small bump on my cheek, and I went to a dermatologist to have it looked at. He had no idea what it was, and he told me that. Not what I wanted to hear from someone who's supposedly doing this every day and supposed to understand this stuff. So he did a biopsy. He called me at home 3 days later, and what he started the conversation with was, Richard, I am very scared for you. Mm. My first thought, of course, was the last time I had a talk like this with a doctor, it didn't go so well. So he explained that the bump was actually a cancer caused by the radiation treatments 14 years prior, and that the cancer was actually inside a blood vessel.
Wow, that is rare.
It's so rare that there's only about 50 cases on a face anywhere in the country. We went and saw a local oncologist here, and he said, we never meet people who get this tumor from glioblastomas because you guys just don't live that long. Wow. So trying to find a doctor with any kind of experience on that cancer is almost impossible. Trying to find a surgeon with experience with that cancer is even harder. And about 50% of the surgeries are done incorrectly for that reason. People who don't have experience do the surgeries. Took 3 weeks, another faith discussion that we won't get into, but we found a surgeon in Boston who is doing roughly 20% of all of those surgeries for this country every year. And when we went to Boston to start making plans for the surgery, they, of course, brought in a chemotherapy doctor and 2 radiation doctors.
Of course.
Didn't tell us that ahead of time. But being able to ask them much more informed questions just because of everything I had learned, obviously, from the first go-around. it kind of forced them to give me answers that they knew weren't very promising, and it gave me what I needed to make the decision to not do chemo, not do radiation. And it is amazing how downright mean a radiation oncologist can get when you say you don't plan to do it. But anyway, it helps to be able to have that informed mindset to go in and ask those kind of questions.
Absolutely. It also helped that you had a 14-year history of recovery.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the second radiation doctor was ecstatic to meet me and told me that. He goes, "We never, just don't meet people like you." And he was a blast. The other one had issues.
Well, you're amazing. I mean, just the way you tell your story is just delightful. From the most depressing kind of news, you're now making it something so uplifting. And so you turned down the conventional therapy other than the surgery the second time around, and you followed only natural programs. So tell us about these natural programs.
Okay. The one I used is called Gerson therapy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been around for over 70 years. And I know that you know who they are. Been around for over 70 years. They've successfully cured thousands of terminally ill cancer patients in that time. And I chose to do the therapy at home, which, especially after having gone through it once with the juicing and that, it is difficult because there's a lot of change involved. But the second time I felt confident that I could do it. So I chose to do it at home. But I mention that because even with stage 4 cancer patients that go to their clinics, they have a 50% 5-year success rate.
That's pretty
regular
easy.
Cancer, stage 4 in this country, your doctor starts talking about giving you time, but also starts telling you that your chance of cure is very small, not anywhere near 50%. So that by itself speaks volumes. And I learned about it after personally meeting a gal that was 83 years old. Met her in the airport in Phoenix, Arizona, and she had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the same thing that killed Jackie Kennedy. She'd been cured at Gerson after her doctors refused to treat her. They said at your age, which was 79 when she developed the cancer, chemotherapy will most likely kill you. And they gave her a 6-month prognosis. And I'm sitting there in the airport talking with her 4 years later. She's completely healthy, completely fine. And it's just, we have met other people who've done the Gerson, and the treatment really is amazing.
Yes, and it's a lifestyle change, no question about it.
Absolutely. Lots of lifestyle change, but it works. And you know what? And I get this all the time. Chemotherapy is a lifestyle change. Having someone drag you down to the radiation oncologist's office for treatment every single day of the week, 5 days a week for 6 weeks, is a lifestyle change. Getting sick and throwing up a lot is a lifestyle change. So when people start talking about convenience, I go, well, you're about to learn a whole lot about inconvenience if you choose to go the traditional route.
Yes, absolutely. I never can figure that out. And people will reject the dietary change because it's inconvenient, but they were willing to do all these other things or let people do them to them, which are definitely inconvenient. But anyway, yeah. The most interesting question that I like to ask patients, because they always seem to know a good part of the answer, why do you think you got sick in the first place?
I know exactly why. In my case, I had started in the cellular telephone industry when it was still very new in 1990. I worked for a utility company, carrier. I averaged 3,000 to 4,000 minutes per month for 7 years.
Wow.
I actually have thermal photos and studies from overseas that show the type of cell that's affected by cell phones, the area of the brain that's affected. There's over 200 studies worldwide that confirm a link between cellular telephones and brain cancer. And we had a study done in this country. It did come up with a link, but the FDA stepped in and chose not to give the study much merit. They stated that they would have it redone to make sure it was credible. Mm-hmm. That was over 10 years ago.
We're still waiting.
And it was never redone. That was a $25 million study that never happened again. I was also eating the standard American diet with all of the dead processed foods. I was in sales, so I was on the road a lot. I was eating fast food a lot. That was just kind of the normal part of every day. That is exactly where it came from. I ran around with that. I even went around, after I didn't die, I bought a radiation meter, and I used to show people how much radiation was coming out of their phones, and if they had a headset, it would travel right up the cord and into their ear. So it was still getting to their brain. That's before Bluetooth. But, yeah, I have no doubt where mine came from.
Do you think the cell phones which are inevitably a part of everyone's life, do you think the phones today are safer?
The industry wants you to believe that for sure. So if not, we're going to have a massive outbreak. Cancer takes an average of 7 years to develop before symptoms arise and people find it. So there could be an epidemic here coming down the road. And especially children, they have softer skulls. Their skulls aren't usually done forming. So they say, kids under 16 are especially at a higher risk.
Yes.
Every child I know under 16 has a cellular telephone. So backwards answer to your question, today's digital phones instead of the older analog phones, they function at a lower power, which is good. Bad side is we spend
a lot of time,
much more time on them. When I was selling phones, 4 hours of airtime was $100. 240 minutes was $100, and that'll cut your use real quick. Now $100 gets you unlimited everything, and the kids are on them all the time. So backwards answer. We won't know until the studies are done, which there's no big hurry in this country for some reason.
Right.
But we're using a lower power for a longer period of time.
So that may be a wash.
These are microwave frequencies. People don't realize that. No one would walk around with the microwave turned on and put it on their shoulder and even had a speaker to talk to. Mm-hmm. But that's what we are in effect doing. So.
Well, I noticed, we've been doing this work since 1977 at BeatCancer.Org, and prior to the mid-90s, I never got one case of GBM, glioblastoma. Starting in the mid-90s, maybe late 90s, which would be that 7-year window you've been talking about,
right.
That's when all of a sudden this type of diagnosis mushroomed. It was unbelievable how many cases we started getting. I didn't even know what that was in 1990.
And now glioblastoma is the number one adult brain tumor.
Yes.
In this country. Yeah.
And unfortunately. You might have seen on our blog site, we recently wrote about the tragic story of Brittany Maynard, who chose suicide in order to avoid what her doctors led her to believe would be an inevitable, horrible death from glioblastoma. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I'm very familiar with Brittany's story, and she was 29 years old. She'd been married only 1 year when she found out she had the glio, and you're right, the doctors convinced her it was going to be a horrible, painful death. Interestingly enough, I have unfortunately watched people die of glioblastoma because obviously I get a lot of calls because of how ugly the diagnosis is, and I don't want to say that it's not that bad, but it's not that bad. But that doesn't matter. Nobody wants to die and have any of that, and I understand. But they told her she had 6 months. She didn't want her family to have to watch her die, so she and her family moved to Oregon, because Oregon has the right to die law. It's called Death with Dignity.
Right.
And I talked to her PR person 10 days before the date that she had set to end her life. And obviously there was that big run in the media there for probably a month before this all happened. Mm-hmm. And nice gentleman, extremely stressed because he was getting a million phone calls. But I explained to him a new procedure for glioblastoma that had remarkable success and asked him if I would forward it to him, because I knew he was going to give me her contact info, but if I sent it to him, would he make sure that she received it? And he promised to me that he would. And 4 days later, she announced that she might not go through with her suicide if it just didn't, in her words, were feel right. So if it didn't feel right, she might not go through with it. And I got all excited. I'm thinking, good, she got the info, she's talking to the docs, this is great. And in the info I sent to her, I said, I realize your passing will help. She was a big advocate for right to die. I said, I realize your passing will help with that for a while. But if you live, you will spend a lot more years being able to work on that. Hoping that would at least get her thinking, yeah, that's a good idea. If I pursue this and I live. And then, of course, people would want to know what she did. That would be even better for glioblastoma. But anyway, she obviously still went through with it. And like you said, the doctors had convinced her there were no cures. She didn't have to die.
No.
There are cures. I'm not the only glioblastoma survivor. There's not a lot of us, because you have to get outside the box before they get you.
Right.
But yeah.
Now, what was that new technology that you came across for treating glio?
It's called AutoLit, AutoLitt. This was approved by the FDA in 2009. It's covered by insurance. It was designed specifically for glioblastoma. I actually found a clinic in Germany that has been using this, and I did this over probably a year and a half ago. Found a clinic in Germany that had been doing it for 6 years with a 60% 5-year success rate. So giving 60% of glioblastoma patients to 5 years. In this country, we're getting 1 to 5.5%. So you see the difference. But what is amazing, we have 22 hospitals in the country with these machines, and most oncologists don't seem to know about it. It's done without a surgery. You stay awake. It can be done repeatedly if the cancer comes back, which with radiation, there's a lifetime limit, and they refuse to give you more radiation. Chemotherapy, the longer you do it, the more sick and lower immune system you get. So you can't keep going indefinitely with radiation chemo. With this, you can. There's no side effects. It's almost painless. And what they do is they take a catheter, which is just a needle with a tunnel in it. But they take a catheter and then a laser filament, looks like a fishing line, would be the best example I could give you. And this all happens with a live TV screen for the doctor. You're sitting in what looks like a half-open MRI tube, and he's watching it on TV while he works, but they put the catheter needle into your head all the way down to wherever the tumor is. They can pass through all the good tissue, so there's no longer the whole thing about being inoperable. Then they take this laser fishing line, this laser filament, they send it down the middle of that needle, and while the doctor's watching, he can sit there and burn your tumor from the inside out, kill all of the cancerous tissue, and make sure he doesn't leave anything behind. They pull it all out, you get up, they either let you stay in the hospital one night, you go home in the morning. If you check in early enough, you might get to go home that night. But literally, if you had to come back tomorrow and do it again, you could. This is so revolutionary. There's nothing else like it for any other surgeries, for any other tumors. And it's amazing. I just get jazzed. The only warning I would throw out there for anyone listening is, if patients have already had a surgery for a glioblastoma, the doctors will not accept them for this. They're still considering it new. I don't know for sure why. My guess is that they want to be able to prove that this new procedure has great results by itself and not have people throwing in, well, there was another surgery. So I think that's the reason for the exclusivity. Given that cancer patients are normally sent in for surgery very quickly after diagnosis, and that's just all cancers across the board, there's very little time for people to do research and find out about this. So all I can say is, if you meet someone who's diagnosed with a glioblastoma and you can tell them about this before they volunteer to have their surgery, that will be the best chance for them getting in for that procedure.
This is very, very exciting, wonderful news. And of course, we also want to encourage people that once the tumor symptom is removed, now is the moment to start working on preventing recurrence. And of course, although the AutoLit procedures is available to be repeated, if we can teach people what to do in terms of diet, nutrition, and lifestyle, maybe it will never come back, because, of course, that's one of the difficulties with glioblastoma. It tends to keep recurring.
Correct. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you used the word tumor symptom, because that's what the tumor is. It's a symptom of the problem. It's not the actual problem.
Right. Although that's how oncology tends to approach it. Just get rid of the symptom and your problem's gone.
Right. Well, that's traditional medication-based medicine in this country.
Yeah.
We tell people all the time, name the last disease we've designed a cure for since polio. And people have to struggle because pharmaceutical companies now have realized there's more money in getting you to treat symptoms for $1 a day than there is giving you a cure that costs $100 or $1,000, because then at some point you're going to no longer spend $1 a day with them. So
I'm not sure.
We only design things that cover up symptoms, and when you stop taking blood pressure medicine, obviously your blood pressure goes back up. If you stop doing a cholesterol med, your cholesterol goes back up. We're just giving people chemicals to stop the body's reactions in certain areas, but we don't do anything to improve their health.
Right.
And then something else comes along later, and then it's just kind of a downhill spiral.
Yes. All right. So, Richard, after going through cancer twice yourself and coaching, I don't know how many cancer patients. And
Me either.
and studying the whole cancer industry, why do you think that other patients don't do as well as you did? And what is that one message that you want to share with our listeners today?
I can wrap both of those up into one answer, and that is just to talk about the cure to cancer.
Okay.
So, because this really summarizes where we're at as a country and what we need to do different. And it's so simple. And that's what I think just makes it harder for some people to grasp. But
the cure is simple. Yes, because we
like simple, but not everybody. Sometimes if it's too easy, people are skeptical.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. The cure to cancer is happening in our bodies every single day. Just to sit on the couch and be a couch potato. The body is burning the furnace at 98.6, and we call that metabolism.
Yeah, and you're not necessarily recommending being a couch potato.
No, but if you're doing more than being a couch potato, you're going to need more of what we're going to call solution in a minute. So, but this is metabolism, and just like a furnace creates smoke, metabolism creates something called free radicals, which create cancer cells every single day. So the point is this: we're all making cancer cells every day. And if your immune system is strong, your immune system is killing those cells before they form into a tumor.
Which actually takes trillions of cells to actually become a tumor.
Every cell in the body takes an average of 10,000 damaging hits from those free radicals that the body is producing from our metabolism every day. So trillions of cells taking tens of thousands of hits every day. But that's the way the body's made, and when it's all in balance, it's okay. You make bad cells, your immune system kills bad cells, and you go on being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So the cure is to get the body back to where it used to be before the cancer ever developed. Mm-hmm. So at some point when the patient has cancer, there was a point when they didn't have it. That's where we need to get back to the body killing its own cancer cells without any help from the outside. And this can only be done with nutrition, because the only thing that builds the immune system is fruit and vegetables. Chemo, radiation, surgery, none of those works long term because they do nothing to bring back the body's ability to kill cancer cells on its own. They don't address the problem. They aren't the solution. The problem is that the cells are developing, not what you said, how to remove them after they're created. How do we remove the tumor and then wonder why it comes back because we didn't stop new ones from being made? The analogy I give people is you can park an ambulance or several ambulances at the bottom of a cliff where people seem to be falling off every day, or you can go up to the cliff and put up a fence and address the problem. The problem isn't having an ambulance at the bottom, and that's not the solution. The problem is people are falling because there's no fence. We are very good in this country at stationing ambulances at the bottoms of cliffs without going up and erecting the fences. So it really comes down to, it's just a three-step process. You're going to detoxify the body. You're going to get rid of the things in the body that are making you sick, along with anything that causes a blockage to you absorbing nutrition. You're going to resupply, meaning you're going to maximize the nutrition to get as much intake into the body as possible so that you can rebuild, which is all of those underperforming organs, the immune system, everything the body needs to get back on top and start killing cancer cells all by itself. So until we add that portion to things like chemo and radiation, which we won't need anymore, but until we at least start adding those three things to our cancer treatments, our survival in this country is going to stay, I say obscenely low, not just low. When cancer survival for most types of cancer, when I say survival, 5-year survival, is 2%, 3%, 4%, and yet we put people through all of these expensive, painful, horrible treatments. something's broken, we need to get it fixed. And this is the 3-step process we need to add.
Well, that is so well said, and we are definitely on the same page, you and BeatCancer.org. Correct the cause, improve the immune function, get good nutrition into that body, and the body will do. Do we not trust the perfect programming of our body to do exactly what it needs to do to protect us?
Which it's been doing for thousands of years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's great. You are living proof and laughing proof that this is very doable. I congratulate you for all of the hard work you did. You've definitely been blessed with a few angels who crossed your path, and now you have become one for those who are learning from you. Thank you so much for being with me today, Richard.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Susan. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Beat Cancer Answer. If you learned just one thing today about how to prevent, cope with, or beat cancer, then we have succeeded in our mission. For more information or assistance, visit our website at BeatCancer.Org. Remember to sign up for our educational email series and get your free gift. Join in the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+, where you can meet others who think just like you. We appreciate all of your feedback and love your suggestions. Please also remember to rate us on iTunes. Your positive ratings help us to get discovered so we can save more lives. Thank you again for listening, and best wishes for good health from all of us at BeatCancer.Org.